Sarah here, welcome back. This is Tarot in Practice, a series originally inspired by Katie Flowers and now adapted to my channel. This is a series in which I share example readings and exercises that I've done with a deck over the course of a month. For the past month, I've been working with the Mystic Mondays Tarot. This deck is by Grace Duong, being a mass market. It's available for like $25 or less. I will say this deck is unfortunately very stiff and very difficult to shuffle with. This is how much of a struggle it is. Oh my goodness, it is very thick. And because the cardstock is thicker as well, it does take a bit of effort to actually overhand shuffle. I will say a proud moment for me is noticing how much it's starting to chip a little bit, which I'm actually really proud of, which means that I've used this deck enough to make it chip a little bit. It also comes with a little guidebook. It's not one of my favorite guidebooks. I do find it a little bit prescriptive, a little bit basic sometimes. Sometimes I feel like the words are just words on paper and they're not really cohesive or actually saying anything meaningful. For example, here's an excerpt from the Queen of Pentacles. It says, "Root yourself in your desires for independence and financial security with a grounded and down-to-earth attitude." That was a sentence that I reread multiple times and I just could not really understand what I was supposed to get away from that. It definitely made me feel very mysterious and very mystical as I was reading through this guidebook occasionally, but for actually applying them, trying to take these concepts and apply them to a reading, I found that I had to just twist the words and ideas a little bit. But not to knock on the guidebook completely, there is useful stuff in here. There are 3 keywords for each upright and 3 keywords for each reverse position. Within these excerpts, I did find bits and pieces that I did find useful. I guess I'm just saying that for the way that I read overall, I just didn't really care for or connect with the excerpts a lot of the time. The deck itself is a lot more wonderful to work with. I'm going to do a quick flip through of the cards as I talk through my experiences with this deck. This deck has a very, very shiny card stock, as you can see, very glossy. The light I have is shining right there, but it adds to the mystical vibe of the deck. So this deck, as you can see, has very simplistic imagery. It is on the more simplistic side, so instead of having a lot of symbolism, this deck shows its personality more through the colors and the shapes on the cards. There are some cards that I find a little bit overly simple, like the Strength card is literally just a lion. I don't really know what other meaning or symbolism to look for in this card, but other cards like the Seven of Wands here, there's a lot more detail and a lot more clarity on what is actually happening. So some of these cards do come off a little bit simple, a little bit pip-ish, as the tarot nerds might say. Even though some of the cards feel simplistic at first, I feel that with a little bit more reflection and possibly reading from the guidebook, I actually began to understand the deck and the vibes much more. I found it easier to do simple readings and straightforward readings with this. I find that this deck does not make me get lost in esotericness or occultiness or deep symbolism, because it's not about deep symbolism. It's a very light, casual, fun kind of feeling, and I've really enjoyed working with this deck. I will say I did find it a little bit boring in the middle. There was a lull in which I did not feel inspired to read with this deck. I didn't find it that interesting for doing weekly readings or casual readings, but when I started to do readings for other people, I found that the imagery just really spoke to me, and it really just connected together in a way that just made a lot of sense for me. Because the strong suit of this deck is all the colors, I find it very helpful to notice when the colors are overlapping with each other or when they contrast with each other. In the sea of all the other decks that I have that have a lot of symbolism and that are a little bit more maximalist, this deck is more on the minimalist side, and I just really enjoy, I really enjoyed having this break from looking at very deep imagery. I just really liked looking at colors. Look at this Nine of Pentacles, so many colors, right? That was my general experience with the Mystic Mondays Tarot. This is a deck that I feel like not many people would like or specifically request readings from, but I feel like for casual readings I really enjoy it. And one more thing I will say in my experience with this deck is that it just reads a lot better when there's a lot of cards laid out. So rather than drawing only 1 card a day or 1 card per question, I find that the cards just sing a lot more when you have multiple cards on the table. So for example, these 3 cards laid out, because there's a lot of purples and blues here matching the background I see, what comes to mind immediately is moodiness. I see that there's a little bit of orange coming through here and a little bit of here, but mainly it just makes me think of introspection and moodiness and kind of slowing down a little bit. Now let's do another 3 card spread. So here we notice that there are all cups cards, but even within these cups cards, there's a lot of color differences. The composure of the cards, the composure of the art in each card is still really different as well. When I was doing readings for people, a common spread that I just did was a 6-card layout like this. And I would take the top spread to mean maybe what the future is going to hold, and the bottom spread to be what are you supposed to do or focus on now. Just seeing all the cards laid out together, the colors just really pop a lot more, and it just makes the deck a lot more fun to look at. Okay, so that was a few cards I wanted to share and talk about. Now I'm going to insert some clips of readings that I did with this deck over the past month. As always, I'm sharing these readings not so that I can get outside opinion or for you to reinterpret my readings, but just to share how I worked with the deck and how I found that it worked for me. So this is the first clip that I'm finally recording of this Tarot and Practice series. I pulled out this deck to start using it probably a couple weeks ago, and I brought it with me to the bachelorette trip that I just had with my wonderful bridesmaids for my wedding. In the week that I've gotten back, I haven't done many readings with it either. I haven't used this deck that much, and I felt a little guilty, because I would like to have a certain timeline of when I get these Tarot and Practice videos filmed and just out the door. So I've had to remind myself that Tarot and Practice is really just about tarot as it really is in practice for me. I cannot force myself to do readings or to be inspired for readings when I'm just not feeling it. So just a reminder to whoever might need this, just know that readings and introspective work and all that stuff, it'll come to you when your mind is ready and when you have inspiration. I was inspired to do basically a relationship check-in with each of my bridesmaids. We went to the city of Portland, Oregon. It was such a beautiful, walkable city, and I had such a fantastic time with all 4 of my bridesmaids who lovingly planned out the trip and surprised me with the destination and all that stuff, which I also kind of treated as our vacation. I hope it was a fun vacation for all 4 of them as well. I basically wanted to do a relationship check-in with each of them, check in to see if I'm paying attention to them and where they're at, and not just making the relationship only about myself. I have 4 bridesmaids, so I pulled 3 cards for each bridesmaid. I journaled about this yesterday. I did all the reflecting. I wanted to share the spreads with you today. So the spread that I chose is a simple 3-card spread, which I first learned from Katie Flowers. It's called You, Me, and We. And I know that many people who may be secular or maybe hesitant about reading tarot may have some type of feelings about reading for third parties or about third parties. My little disclaimer, or the way that I'm seeing this, is I understand that these are my own speculations and my own ideas. I know that I don't exactly speak for the other person. I hope that through these cards, they'll give me an idea of what the other person is going through, just highlight some themes in our relationship that I can be mindful of. So this particular bridesmaid, they are the Wheel of Fortune. I've got the 7 of Swords, and for our relationship, the 3 of Cups. I will be mindful to support them and be present for them and understand that they're going through a lot of life changes. I will hold my tongue and try to be mindful of perhaps if I'm projecting any insecurities or fears onto them. And overall, what I want to focus on in our relationship right now is just 3 of Cups feeling, which is again just very light, very breezy, simple joy. So maybe I'll try to find some games or some TV shows or movies that we can watch together, just spend some simple time together that isn't so much focusing on big deep life stuff right now, because I'm sure they're already at capacity for a lot of deep life talks. So just focusing on lighter stuff is what I want to do here. The next person I wanted to read about, we've got the Princess of Swords or the Page of Swords. For me, we've got the 2 of Pentacles. And for we've got the 6 of Pentacles. I feel like our relationship is very balanced. I feel very secure in this particular friendship. I don't feel like there's anything I have to do particularly differently to kind of maintain or focus on in our friendship right now. I love that they are using their voice and using their words and communicating. I think there's a lot that I can learn from them in this thoughts communication and being forthright aspect. But yeah, it's just this relationship I feel very secure about. I don't see anything too stand out that I need to really work on or focus on too much. The third bridesmaid, our friend I wanted to read for, they are the 2 of Wands. I am the 10 of Swords, and together we are the 3 of Wands. From this perspective, this person, this viewer, is not daunted by these long hills and roads at all. And that's what I find so inspirational about this friend. They just have so much grit and so much fiery passion and persistence that they are able to work through it. Even though they're complaining or struggling, they are still able to work through it. Something I wrote in my journal, I remember, was that ambition can only come true with discipline. Discipline is needed to make those ambitions come to life. With the 10 of Swords, I just finally came to terms with the fact that our relationship is different because we now live in different states. We're moving on with our lives in different directions. I just have to let go of my old ideas of what our relationship used to be so that our relationship can blossom in a new way according to how our lives are now. It's just not fair or realistic to expect them to only stay in California because I want them to stay, right? Because before with the 10 of Swords, I felt like I was trying to put my own expectations onto our friendship, how often we should talk, how we should talk, what should we talk about. And these are all thoughts that I've been able to actually share with them. And it just felt so good to get that off of my chest and to share these deep thoughts with them. It's time to close that chapter when we lived in the same state. Also with the 3 of Wands, the guidebook mentions looking at your life from a bird's eye point of view, looking at the big picture. And when I read that, I then saw these wands as like different pillars in the water that you can kind of stand on, like leap to, or just navigate towards. Like when you're done passing this pillar, then you can navigate to the next pillar. Then you navigate to the next pillar. So metaphorically speaking, for our friendship, because we don't live in the same state anymore, we don't have a lot of same mutual friends or mutual activities. Now our friendship has to become a little bit more big picture. So maybe we don't have as many like daily or weekly conversations or even monthly conversations, but what we can look forward to is like maybe bigger trips together, or maybe big events when we do happen to be in the same city. There's just bigger picture things that we can look forward to instead of trying to keep a relationship like week after week. This spread gave me a lot of perspective on how I can open myself up in the relationship and how I've already been doing so. And lastly, the fourth bridesmaid or friend that I read for, she is the sun. I am the moon. Look at that contrast. And we together are the Four of Pentacles, and the Princess of Wands also came out, so I'm going to include that in as well. I definitely see already a contrast because I feel like I'm moving in a different direction in life and in my interests and hobbies than they are. I've just been thinking about our friendship and how we can continue to make it work, even as my interests and ideas are just moving in a different direction. With the moon card here, I want to be very mindful of not projecting my own insecurities or fears onto this friend. With the Four of Pentacles, there is a little bit of the friendship that I would like to change just to kind of adapt to my current way of communicating and the ways that I like to hang out with people. Princess of Wands reminds me that I can suggest new activities for us to do. Maybe I want to watch like an anime episode or a TV show or a movie like once in a while as well. I can do different things than just our monthly call to keep the relationship pretty fresh and new for me. So those were the friendships that I read for. I know that relationship readings can be a little bit dicey, but as long as you take them with a grain of salt and you use them for constructive criticism, I think they can be really helpful. I did do my makeup earlier just for the fun of it because, again, I'm enjoying doing my makeup for fun, just drawing on my face for fun, using colors and using up my makeup. I wasn't planning on filming, but I feel inspired. So here we are, talking on the fly here because that's the nature of what tarot and practice is, right? It's just showing what my practice is in real life, not always polished and not always ready to talk. Okay, I wanted to share an activity that I did with my deck the other day, basically taking the deck, flipping through the cards one by one. And what I chose to do was I chose to make a few different stacks of cards. I think you could do 3 stacks, like you like this, you don't like this, unsure. What I chose to do was 1 stack for the cards that I either like or I do understand, and 1 stack for the cards that I didn't really understand and or I just felt resistance towards. This is the stack of cards that I actually understood and liked, and I wanted to also just quickly show a few cards that I didn't really get or I didn't understand, or cards that I just wanted to read up more about. Like I really wanted to see how the guidebook would interpret this or add to this. A lot of these are like the more pippish or the minor simple cards. I meant to say minor arcana, but just cards that are a bit more simple here. So I'm just going to draw a card, honestly, for the time being, and I'll get a chance to look at the guidebook and kind of see if that helps me understand or enjoy the card more. All right, so let's shuffle the cards that I don't like much. Okay, a card literally just jumped out. The card is Temperance. When I think of Temperance, my first keyword is like balancing extremes or like just marrying 2 opposite ends. If I didn't really know tarot, I would not understand what the heck's going on with this card. The fact is, I do know tarot, so I can't really say I'm a beginner anymore, and I'm not really trying to speak for other beginners out there. So I said I was going to draw 1 card, but now it's becoming a little bit of a reading. So first card is Temperance. Now the question I'll ask is, what 2 things do I need to marry together? So on the one hand, we've got 6 of Pentacles, got 10 of Cups. When I'm stuck, I like to try to describe the card first and take note of what I see. So to visually describe the Temperance card here, I see on one end of the seesaw, there is a bigger orb. The other end has 4 orbs that are not evenly spaced apart. The 4 orbs look like little grains of sand that are about to fall like into a stack versus the one big rock on the other hand. It reminds me of that analogy or that story of some professor explaining to his class about how time management works. The story goes something like, you have a big jar and you have big rocks and you have little rocks. So you want to put the big rocks in the jar first. And then once your big rocks, your big priorities are all in place, then you can fill it up with the other little sand, little grains of sand, the other little priorities that you want to have in your life. Temperance is about balancing my priorities between what might be the big priorities and also what might be the unimportant little priorities, but they're still important into my whole life overall. Now that I'm talking, that does make me think of make sure that I'm doing like my big goals, like my career and my business or my videos or my like, I don't know, wedding and my relationship and these like really big life things. But I think what's also important to keep in mind and to prioritize are like little things. So for example, I played games for like 3 hours today. I played a new game on Steam that I'd never played before, and I played for 3 hours. It's been a long time since I played games on Steam. I think that's an example of me kind of taking time to enjoy like the little things. Okay. Oh, wow. I can't believe I just like tarot read for myself. I really did not expect to have an epiphany about that card. So now the two things that I'm going to like marry together. So to describe the Six of Pentacles, why I didn't like this card at first, it just doesn't seem anything like give and take to me. It just seems like someone sitting in like a comfortable pose. The other thing that I have to marry together is the Ten of Cups. And this one also was in the do not like pile because it felt like it was a little bit abstract for me. I don't know what to make of this. Just looked like a nice perfect ring of 10 cups around a big nice crystal, and I can't really get much meaning out of that. Unexpectedly, the guidebook is helping me make connections as well. And I say unexpectedly because I do find the guidebook a little bit kind of predictable or reminiscent of like beginner friendly tarot decks or tarot books where it's just a lot of advice instead of like, I don't know, actual Rider-Waite-Smith meanings. But I don't know. It's not a guidebook that I would normally reach for, but surprisingly, I'm getting some good meaning out of this here. Going back to the spread, what I noticed was the cards I laid out were like this. On this side, we have the Six of Pentacles, kind of on the side of the seesaw with a big orb, a big priority right now. And what I see on the little side, the little priorities, is the Ten of Cups. That visual layout kind of helped inform my reading as well. So I read the Six of Pentacles as like, what is a bigger priority that I can focus on right now? And the Ten of Cups was like, what are some smaller priorities or things that I can also integrate into my life right now? So what I noticed as I read the passage from the book is that this person is sitting in this more open pose. They have the pentacles out. They're not like holding on to them. They're like holding them out above them. It kind of shows a certain comfortability with the pentacles here. It's different from a Four of Pentacles vibe where you're like clutching your pentacles, you know, here the next even number, comfortable, and you're ready to share. I just had someone who was a mentor to me for a couple of years in college. She just passed away. I honestly didn't see it coming. I knew that her health was going down for a while, but I didn't realize it was this bad, and I didn't expect her to pass away. So there's a lot of grieving that our sorority sisters are doing right now, and I don't really know how I feel about the whole situation. A priority that I should be focusing on right now for the time being is where can I donate my time or money to support her friends and family, just as she has donated so much of her time and money to supporting me and so many other like sorority women when we were in college. The other card here was Ten of Cups, and again on this side of the seesaw where it's like littler priorities, little things I can take note of and still integrate in, little things I can do. The 10 cups are located at each intersection of the shape here. So each intersection has like a cup, and the book talks about revel in this beautiful moment. It is here where you can appreciate the connection between your friendships and the relationship you have with yourself. When it said the word connection, that's when I noticed like the connections of the cups. Like here reminds me of a network, like a social network. We're happy when we have a strong social network of people that we can rely on and that we can trust and we can lean on for all sorts of things. So unexpectedly, I feel like in a way these cards were all talking about the same thing, of like nudging me to lean into my community and my network, and more importantly, like where can I give right now? Like I am at a good place right now where I don't feel like I am in need of anything. What can I do? What can I give to help other people feel good and feel happy and find peace in this world? So that is my unexpectedly profound little reading for today, using all cards that I initially didn't like or didn't understand, but now I understand and appreciate them better. So it's been about a month since I started working with the Mystic Mondays Tarot. I'll be honest, I don't feel super inspired to do readings. And I don't know if that's because I'm just in a tarot rut overall, or if it's this deck specifically, or if it's, you know, my life. Like I don't really have any particularly pressing issues I want to do readings on. So I figured I would try doing readings for other people just to continue practice using the cards and see if this is a deck that I can vibe with long term. My issue right now is that I do really like the deck visually. I think it's just really nice to look at. I really enjoy the imagery and the colors, but again, for like specific readings, I don't feel too inspired. I'll go ahead and do these readings, as many as I can for now, and then I'll check back afterward and see how I feel about using this deck. I wanted to show my haphazard, just random little setup today. I'm getting a little bit serious, so I'm bringing out a crystal and a little shaker to try to cleanse and get myself in the mood. I have my notebook for actually writing down notes. I've got Tom Benjamin's book on helping me make sure my readings are practical and accurate. So what I did was I put out a call on 2 of the Discord servers that I'm in, just offering readings until Monday or Tuesday, and I've got 9 different reading requests, so that should keep me plenty busy for, a while. I have a tendency to make readings or write-ups really long, and I want to make sure that these readings are concise but also effective. I want to make sure it's not about like typing like 3-4 paragraphs. It's just about giving an answer that is concise and applicable. Okay, debrief time after I did my 9 readings. I actually was not keeping track of how long this took, maybe an hour. I really liked the way that I did the flow of the readings this time as opposed to previous times. In previous times when I had a lot of readings to get through, I would pull cards and then take a picture and write it up, and then pull cards, take a picture, write it up, send it to the person as well. The way that I decided to do it this time was I wanted to batch do it. So I pulled the cards. Because I was filming, I actually could not take a picture as I was going, but that was okay with me. So I pulled the cards, and I wrote down like my observations and the notes, and I had this like 5-minute timer, so I tried to keep each write-up to only 5 minutes because I didn't want to keep it like super long. And then I just went on to the next message, drew cards for the next reading, and then just kept writing. So I feel like that helped my flow a lot. Like I mentioned, I'm just going through and doing all the interpreting and the reading at once. So what I've learned from this exercise is that this deck, it's relatively intuitive to me. Somehow when I pull cards, I feel like I can kind of understand how to weave the cards together. I want to mention a tip that I am recently trying to implement more in my readings as well. The tip is from Tom Benjamin Tarot on YouTube, that some cards can act as carrier cards to the reading. So just like how in our language, not every word has the same weight, he explains that not every card has to have the same weight in the reading. So even if I draw 3 cards, it doesn't mean that all 3 cards are most important. One of those cards could just be acting as connecting cards for the other 2 cards, or maybe it's just a little concept, a little button to help tie the other 2 cards together. So even though I'm drawing 6 cards, I'm not individually interpreting every single card and writing like 3 sentences on each card. Like I'm just trying to connect them together, find out which cards are the most important, and use the other cards to connect those important cards together. Genuinely surprised because like I mentioned before this, I was feeling like kind of in a tarot rut, but I put on my like space ambiance playlist today and I just ran through all the readings and wrote about them, like looked at their poses and their colors, and I feel really good about this. So yeah, let's do a reading kind of similar to some of the readings that I did today. Today, some people asked kind of predictive questions like how will my career play out or how will my love life play out? It felt right to do a 6-card spread. So let me, I guess, do a 6-card spread for myself and show how I would walk you through it. Let's do a how will my, I don't know, just general message for my life. So these cards. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. So top row is a potential like future or things coming up for me. Bottom row is what I need to do or focus on now. The top row, future, 7 of Wands, Knight of Swords, and the Devil. Bottom row, Queen of Pentacles, 5 of Wands, and 8 of Cups. I'm going to take a moment to actually write these cards down and write any associations, and I will come back. So I have my little write-up, and as you can see, out of these 6 cards, I've only been able to write like 2 sentences, 1 for each line, and I'm pretty happy with the short message that I've come up with now. Like in the past, this 6-card reading, even without spread positions, it might have taken me a long time to write up, but it only took me like 5 minutes this time, and I'm pretty happy with the messages that I came up with. So what I first noticed was that the dominant color seems to be this red, just this very bold color. But what my eye is more drawn to is the contrast, the Knight of Swords in the middle. For me, I know that the Knight of Swords is typically characterized as someone who is very quick to jump into action, quick to use their words, quick to jump into debates or even fights. A lot of people will say they don't want to meet a Knight of Swords person, but what I see here is like the complete opposite of all of that. Rather than someone jumping into action, I see someone who understands the value of having a sword and the privilege that comes with being able to wield a sword. I feel like this knight, to me, understands that not everybody gets the privilege to wield a sword. Not everyone is able to have conversations or able to use their words wisely. To learn to use our words wisely is a gift and a privilege that we should be exercising more. So, something that I connected to in these cards, especially with the Seven of Wands, is the idea of defensiveness. And I have noticed this in myself the past few months when I'm trying to present an idea to my fiance, usually, for example, and he doesn't agree with it right away. I start to feel very defensive. Like, why don't you agree with me? Why don't you understand right away how awesome this is? This idea is because I came up with it and my idea is the best. So I definitely have defensiveness as an automatic reaction. And I have felt really guilty about it because, like, in the moment, I feel very emotional and very defensive. And then when I'm like calmed down, like an hour or a day later, I'm like, I wish I'd taken a pause to think about it and respond instead of like jumping into defensiveness, like, why don't you believe me, kind of thing. The sentence that I came up with here was that defensiveness and tricky situations will actually teach me how to use my words more effectively. I feel like the Seven of Wands and the Devil are kind of flanking this Knight of Swords here, kind of like two enemies, like flanking in on the side, closing in. And the Knight of Swords in the middle just has to learn to use their words more effectively. So I feel that a lot with my defensiveness. I started getting in my head, like, I've been hurt and disagreed with so many times. Why don't you believe me and understand me this time? I've been so disenfranchised. I need to keep practicing, like, it's not that serious. It's not that big a deal. It's a disagreement. You're going to get through it. We all get through disagreements. We all have to face disagreements because it's impossible to be agreed with 100% of the time. The bottom row, Queen of Pentacles, Five of Wands, Eight of Cups, for kind of what to do now, what to focus on now. The sentence that I wrote here was, wanting to feel safe can still lead to conflict. There will be occasional bumps, but overall, I am looking for deeper connections. I read the guidebook for the Eight of Cups because I wasn't sure what to make of this card at first. And the sentence that stood out to me was, you're looking for deeper connections in life. That makes sense to me because when I feel like I'm avoiding difficult conversations or I'm avoiding disagreements, I feel like I'm allowing those friendships to stay a bit surface level because I'm not allowing disagreement discussion to help make our friendships better, make my relationships better, make my life better. Definitely, I tend to be in this area of safety, the zone of safety where I want to stay safe and I want to feel secure. And the slightest notion of conflict, it still makes me feel very like scared and insecure. Definitely better now than it was like years ago, but this is still like an automatic reaction that when I am faced with conflict, I just feel like, well, how could this happen? I don't want this to happen. I don't want this to keep on going. The Eight of Cups seems like a reminder to kind of leave that behind and try to move forward in a different way. Because, yeah, I don't want to be someone who like shies away from difficult conversations. Even being able to correct someone on the fly rather than like simmering on it and like stewing on it and then maybe bringing it up like a week later. Like, I want to be able to use my words and bring things up in the moment, maybe. Or again, if I get defensive, then maybe I think on it and I'm able to bring it up like in a timely manner, just an hour or a day later, instead of waiting like a week or never being able to bring it up. I hope this insight into how I'd read like a 6-card spread is useful for you. So that was my experience with the Mystic Mondays Tarot over the past month. If you have this deck, what have your experiences been? Would you say that a newbie tarot reader or a beginner tarot reader should pick up this deck and try to learn from it? That's all for today's Tarot in Practice. I'm going to close out here and get ready for the next installment already. That's all I got for today. Thanks for watching. Bye!